everyone has to find out, you know, what their particular role is. Everybody has a role. Everybody can't do everything, but everyone can do something, you know. And so, you know, as I said, you've seen a lot in not only in your career where racism is concerned. You've seen a lot in terms of the uprisings. And do you feel that there's a little bit of something different about this, that people are more awake?
I think that, yes, no doubt about it. You know, the protests in the past have happened in our community.
Yeah.
But if you look at the protests now, in LA, they're happening in Beverly Hills, they're happening in Santa Monica, they're happening on Fairfax. And guess what? It's not just black folks.
Right.
There's Asians, Hispanics, whites, and blacks, all saying, let's come together and resolve these issues for our children's sake in the future, not just out of anger, but basically, we're not going to take any more. And we want the government and the state to begin to take actions that are going to somehow let us feel somewhat better about the future of our children. Because we don't want them to go through the same thing that from the 60s to now. They shouldn't have to face that. And that's why a lot of them are out there on the street. These young kids, some are 15 years old. You got
young folks out there, man. You got people that are 14, 15, 16, that's 17 years old. That's
right. They understand what's going on. And so I'm very, very encouraged by that. It's encouraging, and I think that we have to begin to, with them, come up with strategies that make sense. And that's possible to do.
Right. And you know what? They're marching in Syria, and they're in the middle of a war. France, England.
I didn't know that.
It has gone outside the United States.
Wow.
And people are looking. I was looking at the news last night, and they're in the streets in France, in Paris, France.
Wow.
You know, saying Black Lives Matter and justice for George Floyd. You know, so it has gone outside the, you know, we have 45 trying to build borders and walls. This has jumped outside the borders of the United States.
That's right. That's right.
And people are looking at us saying,
yes.
Wait a minute, you're trying to go out here in the world and create democracy, and you don't even have a system that supports the least of us. You know, so people are looking at us with a jaundiced eye, like, you know, what you going to do, America? What are you going to do? So
social media is playing a big part. Social media plays a big part too.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically what we have now, what we didn't have before, was the global brain, which allows us to have information instantaneously. Now it's our role. I know you've been a meditator for a while. It's our role to turn the global brain into a global heart. So that we actually infuse it with vision, possibility, and love. Because if we want to live in a kind of just global society, we eventually have to mature to be kind and just global people, you know.
Yes.
And it goes back to in terms of the systemic issues that have to be dealt with, the hiring practices of the police. We have to hire people that have a good heart and head on them, a head on their shoulders and a heart that's beating in their chest, that really wants to serve. I mean, they can't have any psychological issues around superiority and racism and seeing other people as the other. You know, there has to be a really deep scrubbing and cleansing of the hiring practices, the training. I mean, police officers get less training than a hairdresser to get a license to blow somebody's hair out. You have more hours of training to be a barber than you do to be a police officer using a gun. So that a lot of things have to change. But you have to hire people that have good character. Chauvin didn't have good character.
Also, I think
go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I also think the consequences of egregious behavior has to be said also. In other words, suppose you're convicted of something, of taking someone's life unfairly. Suppose your pension's taken away. Suppose there are real consequences to your action. You know, right now many times it's a slap on the wrist. And somehow I think we have to begin to, how can I say, make sure that officers, and you know, I want to say this because I have friends that are police officers.
Say that again, please.
I have friends that are police officers.
Oh yeah, I do too.
And some of them are great people. They're out there to do their job and in a way that's respectful to everybody. But then you have the bad apples.
Right.
And so if the bad apples are not treated in a way with consequences to their actions, not a slap on the wrist, no matter how they're trained, nothing's going to change, I don't think.
Right, right. And I was reading an article about the fact that many of your white supremacist groups infiltrate the police departments and the military to get training on weaponry and strategy.
Wow.
You know, so I think that we have to be on the alert. Those that are in the hiring and looking at the psychology of individuals, there needs to be some kind of a mental and psychological evaluation so these guys can be spotted.
Yes.
You know, and that's just the police department. The justice system, that's something else that has to be deconstructed and reconstructed. Because as I mentioned earlier on Sunday, you know, justice has a blindfold around her. She's supposed to be blind. But when it comes to people of color and poor people, she peeks. And if she peeks and sees that you have a darker hue or don't have any money, you're not going to get the same justice that someone who is white and has money is going to get. So the system needs to be revamped so that everybody's on equal footing. Because there's so many people that's had, because of lack of finances and color of skin, had to plead to something they didn't even do.
Right.
Just to get a lesser offense. So we're talking, this is why people are in the streets, because you have a police department that, not the whole department, we're not saying every police officer, like you just said, I have a lot of police officer friends that are good people and ex-officers that are good people. So we're not condemning everybody, but the structure that provides systemic racism, we are condemning that and the bad apples. But so when you have, so we have policing and we have the justice system. So people are upset because the guys that on broad daylight beat the hell out of Rodney King on video, they were brought to court.
That's right.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
You know, and we can go down the list of police officers in our country in different states, video showing, you know, and maybe a couple of cases, the individuals justice was meted out. So we're talking a justice department, a police department. So there's a lot of issues we have to deal with. And so this is what I'm hoping when I talk about spiritual healing. I'm hoping that George Floyd, that his life is made sacred. That means the word sacred, and the word sacrifice means to make sacred. I'm hoping that his life is made sacred so that this energy actually keeps these conversations going. And more importantly, as you said, creates strategies that can be implemented for real and meaningful change. And I want people to understand this is not going to happen overnight. This is a prolonged marathon of transformation. And hopefully we'll look back and we'll say, you know, after, you know, Ahmaud Arbery was assassinated by those supremacists, Breonna Taylor killed in her own home, and George Floyd murdered, public lynching, something happened. We want to be able to say something happened, you know. And,
you know something I'm going to say to you? You mentioned a very important word, justice. But there's two things. One is the word justice, and then there's just us.
Yeah.
Big difference. And sometimes, in terms of what you're talking about, you're eloquently putting it. And the thing that, we must understand that for many, many years after these protests, we have been playing checkers in a chess game. And we have to start playing chess. In other words, we have to examine what the game is, and we have to get our pieces on the board and play chess rather than checkers. Yeah. Emotions are checkers. Strategy is chess.
Right. And so there's a couple of one, we're hoping that people, not become so frustrated that they did not go to the primaries yesterday if their particular state was up for the primary, because we can see how having a dictator-minded individual having the bully pulpit, how they can change the narrative. So even if, you're dealing with what some people would say the best of two evils, it's better than having someone that's trying to become a dictator.
Yes.
So we need to look at that. We need to look at who our senators and Congress people are and look at that. Yes. And we need to embrace the strong activists, Sean King and others, strong activists that are on the ground pressing the needle forward. We have to understand the work that they do, and then everybody can do something. Yes. I was talking yesterday, as a matter of fact, today, it's being released as a podcast with Lewis Howes. And we were talking about white privilege. He brought it up, young white man. And he was understand that he's living a privileged life, that the things that we're experiencing and have experienced in our life, he's never had to worry about that. He talked about that to a degree. If a policeman pulls in the back of him, he's not concerned. Right. Hi, officer, you come to protect me? That is a different way of living. And I think, again, George Floyd's life being made sacred is waking people up to what people experience on a daily basis. Yes. The glass ceiling, racism, bigotry, seen as the other, not getting the same opportunities, not as a cry for victimhood. We're not. I don't believe in victimhood. I don't believe you should make yourself a victim in any way. I think you should, right. Use all the powers that God has given you and transcend whatever is in front of you. However, sometimes what's in front of us is a little bit different than what's in front of other people. That's so I think that people are more open to the conversation now. I'm talking about our white brothers and sisters are more open to the conversation that certain people have a different experience in America. Mm-hmm. Mexicans have a different experience in America. Black people have a different experience in America. Mm-hmm. Gay people have a different experience in America. Even though the laws say all people are created equal, the narrative, the underlying racist narrative is that we're inferior. It's an insidious thought form, or if an African-American woman or man or Mexican-American woman or man attains great heights, then they're different. You know what I mean? They're different. They're not like everybody. That's right. So I think that it's opened up the possibility of conversation with our white brothers and sisters that we must be bold enough to have. Yes. Not shirk from it. One of my practitioners is thinking about having and she's a beautiful practitioner, beautiful white woman and Jewish, matter of fact, and she's thinking about having conversations with white women about how to make sure that their kids understand what privilege is and having that conversation. And we need more people to step up to the plate. and not
Yes.
just say, oh, that doesn't concern me. Didn't happen in my neighborhood. It didn't happen to me. I don't know George. You know, Bill, everybody's got skin in the game, because you know what? If somebody's oppressed, it's not only creating a karmic stain on the soul of America, it's affecting everybody's psyche. No one can be totally free. I mean, Dr. King said this. Nobody can be totally free unless everyone is free. That's just because we're all connected spiritually, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
A Jewish friend of mine told me this metaphor years ago, and he said that during Nazi Germany,
yeah,
they came into an apartment building, and they took the neighbor across the street, and then they came the next week,
right,
and took the neighbor down the block. And then they came and took his neighbor next door, and no one did anything. And he said when they came for him, he had no more neighbors.
Right. There was nobody there to speak up.
Nobody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not funny, but it's ironic.
It's ironic.
And that's why you were saying earlier, it was heartening to see everybody on the street. It wasn't just black people.
Yes.
You know, Asians, Mexicans, whites, you know, everybody's there, young. It was multicultural and multi-generational. Different generations were out there. You had the very young, and then you had your middle age, you had your seniors, and that's heartening. It's a heartening thing to look at, even though we have a long mountain to climb. But it appears, though, for at least this particular moment, we're all climbing together. And of course, there are bad apples. Of course, there's people that want to steal the narrative. Of course, there's supremacist groups in the country that are trying to undermine this whole thing and create a whole nother narrative around George Floyd being whatever he was, you know. But I have to say, I do believe, because of my over 40 years in diving deep into spiritual matters, that ultimately life wins. Ultimately, love wins.
Yes.
And we're here to be build a kind of just global society that's based on the ethic of love and the ethic of peace, and that's not just a palliative, sweet sentiments. Peace is the dynamic, you know, it's a dynamic of a powerful quality. You see, love is the total givingness of the spirit, and you know, you've meditated for many years, so I imagine in your meditation practice you've touched. Because you've been meditating for a long time. I remember back in the days of transcendental meditation, back in the old days. You've been
40 years.
Yeah, so you've touched some levels of that kind of love and peace, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been very, very fortunate, and you know, we are going through difficult times. But when you sit down and close your eyes and let the mantra dissolve the stress within you to a great extent, and when you allow yourself to have compassion for yourself and others, because we all face challenges every day, I think that's important for us, because if you can resolve the stuff within yourself, you don't take it out on others.
Right.
You know, as you say in many of your services, you know, looking for someone else to, you know, dissolve the issues that are our issues is not realistic. We have to resolve those issues. And blaming everybody else, you know, is, I think I told you this story, you know, and I don't want to be gross about it, but I went to a therapist one time because I'd broken up with a young lady.
You're fading out just a little bit, Bill. Just speak up a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, come up. Come up. Yeah. project like you're acting.
You got it. Many years ago, I'd broken up with this young lady, right?
Right.
So I was so hurt by it, I went to a therapist, and I just vomited out to the therapist how bad she was and all these things and negative about her. And after around 12 to 14 minutes, he said, "Bill, you finished?" I said, "Yeah, I'm finished." He said, "Bill, did you ever think about investing in a roll of toilet paper?" I said, "What did you say?" Did you ever think about investing in a roll of toilet paper? I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "Bill, you're really good at talking about how bad she stinks. But if you took a piece of toilet paper, reached back and wiped your own emotional behind and sniffed it, you would never talk about nobody again." I said, "Michael, I said, am I paying you for this?" He said, "Yes."
He was wanting you to look at yourself in the mirror.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the hard part sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that again, through spiritual intention, meditation, you end up looking at your own thoughts, your own perceptions, and you clean them out so you can be a clear instrument for life to flow through you. Yes. And you don't, in life, it doesn't want you to become strong to withstand the blows from other people. Life wants you to be strong so that you can give your gift.
Yes.
And shine your light and live in a fortress of dynamic inward solitude so that you're not even offended by what other people are saying about you, because they're not even talking about you. They're talking about themselves.
That's right. That's right.
You know, and I think, you know, I have to thank my mother for that, because growing up, you know, here in Los Angeles and having to deal with certain racist things in school and stopped by the police and things like that, you know, she injected in me a deep sense of self-worth. So even when stuff was going on, you know, I didn't like it. However, it did not erode my spiritual self-esteem.
Yes.
I mean?
Yes.
And I could choose to deal with it appropriately in that particular moment. And this is what we want folks to get. This is why we talk about a spiritual healing.
Yes.
It's about justice. It's about peace. It's about shifting the narrative, but it's also about shifting our own narrative. Who do we think we are?
Yes.
Do we know ourselves to be a luminous, limitless light being, having an incarnation as an African-American man or woman or whatever the incarnation is, Mexican, white, whatever. And to really understand that we're limitless beings, and we can transcend and change so much with that awareness. You see,
I agree 100%.
Yeah, and so it's always good. I'm glad that you when we could meet.
Yes.
Before pre-COVID, I was always glad to see you at Agape, being a part of that powerful celebration of life.
It's my blessing to be there. You blessed so many people in so many ways, and thank you for that, sincerely.
Absolutely.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.